As the great bard once wrote, parting is such sweet sorrow. Yes, unfortunately, Del Mar shuts its doors tonight, and they won't reopen for another 8 months. It's closing day of the Bing Crosby meet, so it's a sad day for me, but it's also a good day because we have 9 more races to tackle, and 2 of those 9 races that we'll talk about today are part of the Turf Festival, which has been terrific so far. Hats off to the racing office for putting on a 3-day program that was just an extravaganza for horse players. Can't wait to go over a couple of key bets from today's card. I will introduce my special guest in just a minute, but I have to say this every week in case there are any first-time listeners out there. This is not a traditional selection show. We are not going to talk about every race. Just going to look at specific races and wagering strategies that offer the best opportunities on the card to make a decent score. If you're watching live, feel free to leave us a comment or ask us any questions. The show will also be archived on Del Mar's Twitter and YouTube platforms. Now, back to today's guest. This young man has done terrific work for the In the Money Media Network. He was part of the BC Diaries with last week's guest, Tyler Hoffman, and if you listen to that show, congratulations to Tyler. He crushed the exact in the nightcap, got me out on the day, made me a little profit too. So no pressure here. Today's guest will help us out as well. I'm very pleased to introduce a young, up-and-coming, smart guy, good horse player, good handicapper, Jackson Muniz. Jackson, what's good, my friend?
I think you're right. It's a little bittersweet day. It's tough when it's the last day of the year for Del Mar, but excited to be here and always ready to talk some Del Mar racing.
Yeah, I mean, we'll wake up in a couple of days and we'll just start firing away at other tracks, like pretend Del Mar never happened. But in the meantime, we're going to feel it, but we're going to make the most of it. Before we talk about some things, I just want to let everybody know, since it is closing day, there are mandatory payouts in all the pools. That means all money must go. So get involved. There's no carryovers or anything. Everything bet into the pools today, minus the takeout, gets paid out back to the players. And then there is also a special promotion today. Del Mar did this over the summer, and it was very, very successful. It's called the Data on Us promotion. There are a couple of handicapping platforms or data services that are part of this. If you go to dmtc.com/data on us, you can test out some of these products for free. If you're thinking about maybe using them or didn't want to, pay right up front, now's the chance for you to go sign up and get these free products and use them and try them out. So a little bit of a test drive. And the only thing that horse players like more than a free lunch is free data. So definitely go and check it out. All right, Jackson, I had you on my handicapping seminar over the summer on track. We met through our mutual friend, the great Peter Thomas Fornatel. Not only did you do such a great job handicapping, but we talked a little bit about your racing origin story. And of all the racing origin stories that I've talked about on shows before, Terry has been locked in on this one ever since, and she asks me about it all the time. So for those who don't know how you got hooked on racing, please care to share your origin story and, entertain us, because it's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah, I mean, mine's pretty similar, I think, to a lot of horse players. My dad took me to the track when I was probably 3 months old. There's a picture of him holding me in the infield at Del Mar, and I was hooked immediately, even before I could probably learn how to talk. I mean, that's how the races is how I learned my colors. The 1 is red and 2 is white and all that. And I learned how to I was so hooked. It was bad. I learned how, I don't think I told this part of the story, but in kindergarten, I was super advanced at math because I learned how to add and subtract so quickly because first of all, I couldn't do it. And then they would change it up to saying, okay, if there's 12 horses in the starting gate and 4 of them scratch at the gate, now how many horses do we have? And I could do that easy. I'm like, okay, there's 8. But if it was just a simple math problem, I couldn't figure out how to do it. And then, this is the story I think I told them at the seminar. And, most kids, they wake up and they watch cartoons or you watch whatever, or go to bed, you watch cartoons or whatever. But not me. My dad made me a VHS tape of the Trevor Denman live replay show from Del Mar and Santa Anita, and that's what I would watch every single day for ever and ever and ever. There's probably like 100 races on there, and I would watch it all the time. And it was If we found that tape and we put it on, I could probably tell you the winner of every race just looking at the program because watched it so many times. It was great.
Absolutely amazing. Yeah, for those who might not remember, Trevor Deming used to host a recap show after the races each day, kind of going over who won. They show, a little bit of the race call and whatnot. And instead of Scooby-Doo or, the Flintstones or, Bugs Bunny, you're sitting there watching these races over and over and over again. It's just, it's just the greatest thing. And I love it. And, for a kid that it's funny, like for you, that was just, that's, you probably assumed every kid did that. Oh yeah,
I got to kindergarten.
Let's watch the races.
I got to kindergarten, and no one else knew what the races were, and it was a reality check for me for sure.
And you're like, teacher, why? How come this math problem doesn't say if there's 12 horses in the starting gate and 4 of them scratched, how many are left?
It was so different. It was definitely an adjustment, but we made it work. And there actually was a teacher, I think, in first grade that had a picture of her and her friends at Del Mar. And I was like, is that Del Mar? And that was like my favorite teacher forever after that.
Unbelievable. Well, you mentioned you have a picture of yourself, as a baby from the racetrack. I talked about Tyler Hoffman last week. He's same thing. He's got a picture of, him being held at like 1 month old at the racetrack at Santa Anita. So let's talk a little bit about Tyler, because I know you guys were part of a really cool documentation of young horse players trying to qualify for the Breeders' Cup betting challenge. Tyler did, and we talked about this last week. Man, did he crush it! He ended up finishing third. I think he took home more than like $250,000. He brought his $7,500 bankroll, up to like $115,000. He just had an absolutely great day. I'm so happy for him. I did not have as successful a Breeders' Cup. I'm not sure what you did, if you qualified, if you played or anything like that, but just, talk to us about that, that whole process.
Yeah. Well, first of all, congrats to Tyler, because that was incredible. I mean, I don't remember how many entries there are, but I know it's a lot.
Like
it's over
550 or something. It's ridiculous.
I mean, to get anywhere near the money in that, especially this year, I thought this year's Breeders' Cup was one of the toughest in a long time, just personally, because I didn't think there was any outside of Torpedo Anna. I'm like, all these big favorites, like, can they win? Of course, but they're not like the locks I think we've seen in the past few years. So
right. So you really couldn't focus on one thing to kind of build your day around and push all in. Maybe Lake Victoria on day one, but I think, like you said, Torpedo Anna and Lake Victoria, maybe those are the only two, because the racing was really competitive. Right.
And even then, like, I think typically you see some horses that are like 2-1 or 5-2. Okay, I can shove on those. But Lake Victoria was 3-5 and Anna was 2-5, I think. I mean, that's not even doubling your bankroll. So
right.
It was tough this year. So again, congrats to Tyler, congrats to everyone else that got up there. I know it was a very tough year. And I mean, $250,000 is pretty sweet, pretty sweet total to go home to. But yeah, I got to meet Tyler, got to meet Justin Mustari as well. And we would talk a few times, and those guys are great. They're awesome. They're obviously really good at what they do, because I think Justin was 5th in the previous year. I know he was pretty high up.
Yeah, and he won the NHC a couple of years ago, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean,
he was the youngest NHC champ in history.
Yeah. So if anytime those guys are on, I listen to what they say, because they're obviously very good, and it was really fun. I mean, I unfortunately did not qualify this year. I played in about 5 contests, I think. Got very close a few times. I had one at Keeneland, my horse, to win the contest, took the lead at the 8th pole, and then just hit a wall in the 16th pole and got second. And then the day before the Breeders' Cup, I was playing the last chance tourney, and it really was the last chance. It was the last race of the year before the Breeders' Cup.
Right.
I was in contention, and it was on horse tourney, so it's one of those live ones. And I picked the winner of the last race. It was the one horse, won the race, and it was empty. It was the day before Breeders' Cup. There's no one there. I'm running up and down the grandstand celebrating like I just won. And then I go back and look, and I got blocked by it. There's just everyone in front of me also picked the same horse.
Because it was live, so you didn't know. Like when it's not live, for those who don't know, if it's a pick and pray, you can see everybody's picks. So going into the last race, you can see if anybody has the same horse ahead of you and know if you have a shot or not. But because it's live, you don't see the picks until after. Wow.
Yeah, so that was rough. I mean, it was a very quick flip of the emotions there, because like I said, I figured I had a really good chance of winning, because I think there was like 5 people in front of me, and more than 5 picked that horse. So it just kind of worked out that way. But it was, I was right there, had a chance.
That kind of sums up horse racing in a nutshell. The peak of emotions. You go from the highest to highs to the lowest to lows. It
ended up mattering because my Breeders' Cup opinions were just bad. So
really
didn't mean too much.
That's how it goes. Some days you're just seeing the ball perfectly and you're knocking it out of the park. Other days you look at the racing form and you're like, what is this? I have no idea. Every horse looks the same. So tell us a little bit about what you're doing now. You did the BCBC Diaries. I know you did a little, you do some analysis for In the Money Media. You have this Get Buck podcast with another friend of ours, Ryan Anderson. What's going on?
Doing, right now with Ryan, I know me and Ryan are really good friends now, and it's all thanks to you. I know you introduced us kind of, and he has his channel Get Bucked that I'm a part of. So once a week we'll pick just any kind of sequence. It kind of just depends that we'll go through and do a late pick 5. And we're also doing another show now weekly that's with the NYRA circuit with Kaylee Shapiro, who works for NYRA Bets. So we're just starting that out. And this week especially I think is a big one because they have their Cigar Miles coming up. So that's gonna be a really fun one. With Matthew DeSantis is coming on as well. So
cool.
We're really excited for this one because I think it's very similar to Turf Festival. They have like
where can people find this?
It's on YouTube. It's actually called The Gallop Out. So that's the name of the channel, and you'll see all the videos we have on there because we're putting out a lot each week, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. So like there's a really cool young group of guys. You must have been like, oh my God, I'm not the only crazy person. There might be a couple of other people out there like me a little bit. And I talked to this to Tyler last week because he was part of the young generation 2 generations ago. Now he's evolved a little bit now. Now you're part of the young generation. You're picking up the slack. But I asked him, how important was it him? I know he learned a lot from his dad, but he was friends with Matt Dinnerman, who's now the race caller at Oaklawn Park, which starts on Friday, by the way. So check that out. Carlos Ortega, who did my show On Track yesterday. A couple of young guys got together, shared opinions. How important do you think it is for your development as a horse player to kind of be around like-minded guys to maybe, bounce ideas off of, or maybe pull money together and go in a pick 5 or something like that?
I think it's really important. And what I like hanging out with Ryan and also Noah Maher, who we were hanging out with yesterday, and, we'll be doing these shows and I'll give my analysis, whatever, and this is what I like. And he'll kind of challenge my opinion sometimes, like, well, why did you say it that way? And it really makes me think, like, do I really like this horse that much? Or am I kind of just trying to make a case for a horse I don't really love? And sometimes I do have a great rebuttal. I'm like, yeah, that's exactly why I like this horse for X, Y, and Z. And other times I'm just like, I don't really know if I want to put money on a horse that I don't love that much. So it's really good to get that kind of to challenge each other, and make sure you actually have those strong opinions. Because for me personally, I'm much better when I am playing those strong opinions rather than playing every single race on the card.
Well, that's the way to do it. And for you to understand that at such a young age is very important. That'll help preserve your bankroll because you have to be absolutely disciplined in the sport. I'm at the races every day during the summer and in the fall meet. And if I was an action junkie, you'd see me on the street corner with a cup asking for donations because this is the toughest game. This is the toughest game in the world. And you have to pick and choose your spots. You have to believe in your opinion, and you have to maximize when you're right. You have to take as much money out of a race as possible if your opinion is right. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. You mentioned growing up, learning math, just understanding. You had to understand odds and gambling and all that stuff, but you also had to learn how to read the racing form. Like you wanted to be informed, right? So just talk to us a little bit about your handicapping process. Your foundation. How have you evolved over the years? Is there something that you do now that maybe you didn't do 5 years ago that gives you a little bit of an edge? Because let's face it, the markets are super efficient. There are some incredible computer models out there who make the markets pretty fair. So finding an edge and finding a horse who's a little bit of value and maybe an overlay, it's a lot harder, at least for me, than it was 10 years ago. I used to regularly sniff out horses on a card who were between 6-1 and 12-1, and those horses would fire. Their true odds probably should have been, maybe like 4-1 or 5-1 or even less, but the market wasn't as efficient. So you could find those horses, at least one a day. It's a lot harder now.
Yeah, it's very difficult, and I think a very underrated skill that horse players have now is just predicting what the final odds are going to be, because
Yeah.
we see it all the time with these late odds changes. It's very tough, and I think that's something I've definitely worked on over the last pretty much since COVID. I feel like it got really bad where you just see these flashes where these horses just get cut in half at the bell, and it's definitely something you need to pay attention to. And learning from various sources and stuff, I just pay a lot of attention to the well pays when you can, because those are very good indicators. Not 100%, but I do think it's a very strong indicator. And
yeah, you'll know that, hey, there's no way this horse is going off at 8-1.
Yeah.
This horse is third choice in the double the doubles,
Right.
The probables or the will pays, and this horse is probably going to get cut in half. But it's hard when you make a bet at 8-1 and the horse that's half your profit gone. Just gone. So hard.
Yeah, doubles are good. I actually prefer to use the pick threes just because with the smaller dimension or minimums, the CAW teams who are betting the most money and betting at the bell, they're able to be much more efficient with the smaller denominations. So I think those are more better,
more indicative of the final price,
rather than a double where I have friends that bet giant doubles that can skew it a little bit. And I've also heard some of those CAW teams don't bet doubles that heavily. So if I can, I try to use the pick threes, pick fours, pick fives. I just think they're a little bit better indicators, and it doesn't always work out that way, but that's, again, it's not a perfect science, but it's better than nothing.
Yeah, I mean, you're trying to make as informed decision as possible based on limited information, right? Yeah. So anything that you could use that gives you another piece of the puzzle is very, very helpful. So talk about handicapping. I mean, you're an old school racing form, pen and paper guy, formulator, or any new price. Like I use formulator on my, I get it on my tablet here.
Right.
I handicap old school, and then I use Optics EQ. That's the handicapping platform that I use to help confirm my opinion or maybe put me on a horse that I may have overlooked. So how do you do it?
Yeah, I'm a racing form guy. That's kind of how I learned. I was probably 10 years old when I started learning to read the form. And, that was back when they had the polytrack. So I learned how to handicap all the synthetic. And so now I hear about the people that hate it. And I don't know. I don't mind it. That's kind of how I learned to do it. And it was not much of a transition to go back to the dirt or the grass or anything. That's my basis is the racing form. And then when I want to dive deeper, which I do pretty often, I'll go to the replays. I think replays is probably one of the few spots left where you can find some things that aren't in the PPs, and you can find a bit of some value in there, because I can watch a replay and then you can watch the same replay and get two totally different opinions on that race.
That's right.
And again, I think when you see horses that are just completely thought off and stuff like that, everyone sees that, everyone knows, and
that's going to be built into the price already. Me and people call that the international trip horse.
Oftentimes those are overbet. So
for sure.
So it's more the subtle trouble, or I think you can find a really good edge. So I'll look at that, and then I'm also a big race flow guy. I'll look at the charts. If there's one speed horse that hangs around and it's all closers, I want that speed horse next time, and vice versa. If it's only one horse, especially in the dirt, if there's one horse closing and the entire speed horses are just hanging around, I want to look for that closer next time. Hopefully, getting a bit of a better setup.
Yeah, absolutely, because race flow and race shape is so important, and I find that you'll see a lot of horses who get an easy lead and win pretty convincingly, maybe on a slightly speed favoring track. Their speed figure is always inflated.
Yeah,
it is always inflated. You have to take it with a grain of salt. But conversely, closers who have great setups, their numbers not usually as inflated as the speed horses. It's a really strange thing. But yeah, how did the horse win the race? Did the horse have any challenges? If the horse won wire to wire, who came back to win out of that race? I mean, was it a tough race? Was it a weak race? How does that set up for this horse look today? A lot of things like that. I'm with you. I think it's really important to have that foundation, pace handicapping, and seeing how last time's race flow will either be the same or different than this time's race flow. And we'll talk a little bit about that, because you actually had a strong opinion in one of your races today, but based on 2 scratches, completely different opinion now. And we'll talk about when we get to the races. I just want to talk about one last topic before we go on: wagering strategies. I know you talked about trying to keep things simple, and our guests will, excuse me, our audience will see that today you have 3 spots and you're going to make 3 win bets. Keep it simple. don't mess around. If your opinion is right and your horse wins, you get paid. So just talk to me a little bit about that. And, is there anything else that you like to do maybe, or you just kind of take the card as it comes?
Yeah. Real quick, just to finish up the other part.
Okay.
The last thing I probably should mention is the addition of XBTV has completely transformed 2-year-olds for me, especially in California. I used to just pass every single time, but now that they have them, you can see all the workout videos.
Yeah.
You can see how they look. You can see them out of the gate. You can see the company they're working with. I think that's very important, especially with the Bafferts, because you can the good Bafferts, they work with each other, and the ones that aren't good, you can tell because they're very good horses. And I don't have the data to back it up. I would probably argue my strongest races now are the 2-year-old races at Del Mar during the summer, just because there's so much more info out there. And that is also a spot where I think a lot of people aren't really watching those. So you can sometimes get horses, not even necessarily those main special weights, but sometimes in those maiden claimers that are just rocket ships out of the gate, and they're 4 or 5 to 1 because no one else is watching them. So that would be another spot I would look at. Or
maybe they're relying on workout reports that a lot of people have that same information. So the horses who are working well, there's some really good clockers, but based on their information, a lot of people have the same information. So that's going to be reflected in the price. So anytime you can do something different, you're giving yourself an edge. I will have to say that is probably the weakest part of my game. I watch horses working and I go, that's a horse who's running. I don't know if the horse is running fast or slow. I have no idea. I can tell if a horse is going well. You know what I mean? Like doing it in hand, that kind of thing. But that's very, very difficult for me, which is a little bit of a struggle because Del Mar is known for the 2-year-old racing, right? So it's some of the best 2-year-old racing in the country. So watching replays and finding subtle trips that other people may not have noticed, and watching those workouts and formulating your own opinion on how the horse is doing gives you an edge. And I'm reiterating that only because, we talked about the CAWs and the computer models. These are things that are not necessarily quantifiable, right? You can't really work this information into an algorithm because it's subjective. It's your opinion. It's what you saw in a race replay, and it's what you saw in a morning workout. So doing that little bit of extra work does give you an edge. So now that you have that edge and you have an opinion, talk to us about your wagering strategies. I mean, are you simply just a win bet guy? Do you play multis just for fun, or are you serious about them?
Yeah, for a long time I was pick fives, and that's you hit a few here and there, but it's a quick way to go broke. And
it's tough.
It's just so frustrating when you have 2 great singles and they both win, and you don't cash anything on the day because you miss some horse you never would have had.
Right.
But you had those 2 good opinions that both paid $10, whatever, and you lose money on the day. And it got old. At some point, you got to just simplify it. I still play the pick fives. I'll pop up with the pick 6 today just because it's a mandatory and I think it's approachable, but it's significantly less than it used to be. It's maybe 20% of my bets now are those.
So, right. That's more of an action bet, maybe if you could key a couple of, but the majority of your bankroll is going to win bets. I'm assuming
win bets and doubles.
It's
probably split pretty evenly. I love the double now. It's probably my most profitable. I was looking at my Naira bets has you can look at each wager, and
that's right.
The double is my most profitable, at least this year. And what I really just try to do is either I'll pick 2 logicals back to back that I think I can just hammer,
right?
Or I'll find a horse I like. This is what I did yesterday. It burned me, but usually it works out okay. Is I'll find mid prices, anywhere between 5 to 1 and 8 to 1, and I'll either bet it to win, and I'll look on either side of the double or of that race. And if there's a big favorite that I think it's just can't lose, I'll hammer it because you're going to get really good value out of it. Especially when it's a middle price, because they typically overpay. Like on Friday, the one I think I talked about this to you on yesterday, we talked about it with Balnikov on Friday. He was 6 to 1. I bet a big double into accuracy. It was 1 to 9, and the double was paying 12 to 1. And if you're going to give me double the price on a horse I like,
right, with a horse you can't lose, basically in one of the other legs.
Yeah, so those are the kind of bets I think you get really good value on, and I've had a lot of success doing that. Yesterday burned me 3 different times. It's probably burned me 5 times all the last 6 months. It just happened to be one of those days.
Just
but
a little bit of a
yeah. So it's frustrating when
the variance, what happens.
Yeah, it's frustrating when that big favorite loses, but it's going to happen. And I think long term, it's going to be more profitable long term if you're correct in your opinion.
Well, also you can still bet the horse to win, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you whiff in the double that's giving you a little extra juice on your 5-1, making it a 10-1, you can still come back and bet your 5-1.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
And also the thing that I love about the doubles is you have an idea of what you're betting into, right? You can see if there are combinations that are being overbet, combinations that are being ignored, where there is a little bit of extra value. So I'm with you. I try to keep it simple: win bets, doubles, and also exactas. I mean, I feel like if you have a good opinion in a race, and I use exactas more as Pete and I call this exacta as place bet, right? Okay. You bet your horse to win, and then you look at maybe there's 2 or 3 horses, the only 2 or 3 horses in the race who you think can beat you. You key those on top of your horse if your horse runs second, and then of course you want to maximize. You come back and you play your horse on top of those. So if the horse wins, you're cashing your win bet, and maybe you're hitting a good exacta. And if your horse runs well and finishes second, instead of doing a place bet, which I think is a little undervalued, is a little less value, if you can hit a nice exacta with logical horses on top of your horse, the point is you want to try to take as much money out of the race as possible if your opinion is right.
Right. Yeah, I don't play exactas too much, but when I do, it's very similar. It's I love this horse since he's 8-1, and there's an even money shot in the race that if someone's going to beat my horse, it's in all likelihood it's going to be that horse.
Yeah, you don't have to be a hero. You can still use that horse in the exacta with your horse.
Yeah. So I'm gonna have the win bet, and if he gets second, and again, by far the most likely horse in the field is going to be that big favorite, then I'll just do the win bet and the exacta and do it straight.
Keep it simple. All right. Well, we're going to keep it simple today. You got three key horses to talk about in 3 different races, and we're going to talk about your strategies, which we already did. Just make some win bets. Yep. Let's move. Start in race 5. First leg of the 50-cent late pick 5, covering 3 races in the sequence, in the pick 6 sequence, which again is a mandatory payout. This is the first of 2 graded stakes races on the program. It's the $100,000 Cecil B. DeMille for 2-year-olds going 1 mile on the lawn. For all you youngsters out there, Cecil B. DeMille was a famous Hollywood director. He also happened to be Joe Harper's granddad. And Joe Harper is the face of Del Mar and the chief executive officer. So named in honor of Hollywood royalty right there. Morning line favorite, number 4, Scipio at 8-5. Oddly enough, this horse is still a maiden after 3 races. But look, let's be honest. Instead of this horse being 0-3, he easily could have been 3-3, right? He's had some excuses. He's had some trouble. 2 of his 3 races as a maiden have come against Stakes Company. Against Stakes Company again today. So by no means an easy spot. Pratt rode the horse last time, got into a world of trouble. He's back today to make amends. I think this horse is very tough, and we can talk about it. Originally, this is your top pick, and you really, really like this horse, but we talked about race flow, right? There were 2 key scratches in the race, completely changed the dynamic of the race. So why don't you talk us through this one?
Yeah, I did the podcast this week in the Money Media, and we covered this race, and I told everyone that Scipio couldn't lose. So hopefully that everyone that listened to that is going to listen to this, because like you said, the dynamics of this race completely changed this morning. It's very similar to the Hollywood Derby yesterday when the 2 speed horses scratched and everyone in front it was kind of a merry-go-round around there. So you kind of have to be willing to adapt. You can't get married to an opinion when the information changes, because this is a totally different race than it was 2 days ago. Because Clock Tower, I mean, he's supposed to be 3 or 4 lengths faster than everyone else early. Now that everyone else is scratched.
Yeah, Pally Kitten is out, and who was the other scratch?
Kale's Angel for Peter Miller. I think he's running at Oaklawn on Friday, I believe, is why he's out now. And,
and both of those horses were expected to be contesting the pace along with Clock Tower.
Right, because my original opinion was it's going to be Scipio or it's going to be Clock Tower. No one else can win. That's my initial thoughts on this race were, but I was hoping that with the 2 speed horses, they're going to wear him down a little bit, and it'll set up for Scipio. Take those speed horses out, he's going to be tough to run down. I mean, he's going to have a clear lead. He went to Kentucky Downs, and I think the Kentucky Downs form is finally starting to translate a little bit better to other tracks. There's just so much money there.
It's such a quirky track, but
Yeah.
Some horses just love it, some horses hate it. But I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry, but to your point now, you see a lot more horses showing up there from different circuits. So, and again, like you said, you can you have more information now going forward than you did maybe 3 or 4 years ago.
Right. And I just think there's better stock going out to Kentucky Downs just because the money is so much better. Like before, everyone would just target Saratoga. And now I think there's horses that are skipping Saratoga towards the end of the meet to go run at Kentucky Downs because the money's just so much better. So I think that form is really good. He won wire there by open lengths. So it's a decent field he beat. And then he went to Keeneland's at a really fast pace against a grade 2 field and just got a little tired late. He hung in there to deep stretch. That was going to mile 16. They went pretty fast that day again. And, the horse that got second, who we dueled with the whole race, came back to win, I believe it was Friday. And he beat a really good allowance field over at Fairgrounds. That was a stakes quality allowance field that Golden Afternoon came back to beat. So he's been keeping good company and he's got the best figures and he's going to be on a clear lead. So you're not getting anywhere near 3-1. He could maybe be favored now. I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah, I think you might be right. And having that cut back out of the 8.5 furlong Bourbon to today's mile is significant.
Yeah.
And
the turf course right now is playing very fair. You can win from on the lead, you can win from mid-pack, and you can win from way out of it. So I'm not concerned at all about that. Yeah,
typically, it's you're right. The Delmar turf course does play really fair. I typically look to beat speed horses going a mile because it's pretty tough to wire a good field going a mile, right? You're running a fast pace and you have to sustain that pace all the way through the wire. And you've got some good horses who can finish coming after you. But I mean, this horse should be 4 lengths clear, like turning for home.
I would prefer him to be 4 lengths ahead. I don't love when you try to rein in that speed just because he's not going to outkick someone like Scipio. If they're a length apart top of stretch, he's not going to outkick him. So I hope they just let him roll and open up and say, come catch me.
My favorite move from a jock who's on a speed horse is when you're rationing the horse, you're rating the horse, you have speed horse. You don't have to rip it open so early, but once you start leaving the backstretch, you rip it open, you let that horse go, and you make them all come chase you. And Richard Migliore said that. He said he won so many races on the lead by making that move. And coming around the turn, you start opening up. And then you hit the stretch, you keep going, and you make them all start catch you. They all have to start moving earlier than they wanted to.
Right.
And then you end up with, So when I have a speed horse, who's maybe 3 lengths clear going easy, and then they hit the turn, and then they start to open up, I'm like, go to the window. Perfect. And Richard Migliore was one of the best. And hearing him talk about that was just, this is going way, way back. I heard him on some radio show or something. And, you have to factor in jockeys, of course. They're a very important piece of the puzzle. But hearing that kind of analysis from a jockey, reading the racing form and saying, I'm on a speed horse, this is my plan, trying to get inside the head of a jockey is very interesting. So to hear that firsthand experience from Migliore really helped inform my handicapping. And watching jockeys' tendencies and knowing what they do, you get a good speed rider on a speed horse in a paceless race.
Right,
you're looking pretty good.
Yeah, I feel good about Johnny V taking the speed horse and letting him do his thing. So, again, I don't know what kind of price he's going to be in this spot, but he'd be a big one bet and single all day for me. So
there you go.
Speed of the speed, lone speed. Bye bye.
Yeah. Those 2 scratches really, really helped that horse. Unfortunately, I think Scipio is again going to come running late and maybe finish second or third. So, but if he wins, you tip your cap and you move on to the next race.
Yeah, absolutely.
And let's move on to the next race that you singled out. Race 7, the $300,000 Matriarch, grade 1 for fillies and mares going 1 mile on the lawn. This is the marquee event of the meet. I love this race. In fact, it's such an important race that none other than Chad Brown, he bought tickets for 4 horses to fly out here and run today. I mean, he's got he unloaded the barn for this race. Got the morning line favorite, number 11, Gina Romantica at 8-5. I mean, this mare is just so cool. I mean, she's earned more than $1.7 million. That's pretty darn good in and of itself. She cost $1 million back in 2020, And how many times you see these big ticket purchases either never pan out or never make their money back? I mean, she made her money back and more. She's the class of the field. She's the fastest and most accomplished horse of the race. But, you know, she's a 5-year-old mare. She's kind of at the tail end of her career. I assume this is going to be her last race. I'd be, you know, I don't have any information, but be a little surprised if she came back and ran, ran next year. You might know more. So I'm thinking this is kind of the swan song. Monster win in the First Lady at Keeneland, another grade 1. I think she, you know, you go out top of your career and you go out at the top of your career and then but you have 3 other Chad Browns. You can't bet her. I mean, she's going to be shorter than 8-5. I think you have to take her on. And if she beats you, you just stand there and you clap and you go, what a classy mare. What are we doing here?
Yeah, I have enough questions about her that I want to try to take her on. I don't think she's been quite as good this year as she was last year. And then she went to Keeneland and dominated, but she always does that. I mean, she'll be okay, goes to Keeneland and just pops.
That's a track.
Like, it's just her favorite place in the world. She runs so well there, so you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt. And then she drew the 11 post. I mean, that's not easy to win. We've seen it. I think the 11 post has won 3 or 4 races this weekend alone on the grass.
Yeah.
But
that's pretty good on the turf this meet.
Yeah.
But still, I mean, if you get hooked wide, you're in trouble. You know, you have to really be strategic.
She was supposed to run the Breeders' Cup. She had a quarter crack, I think, the week of.
And I was wondering why she didn't show up there and showed up here instead.
Yeah,
okay.
This is, you know, it's a pretty quick turnaround. I do think this is her last race, and I think they're just kind of throwing her in there now just because, I don't know, it's might as well. It's a great one. Let's go for it.
Okay.
But remember last year, and Chad Brown has lots of horses and races all the time, but it's different when you're sending them across the country 3,000 miles away. I think he usually just sends 1 or 2 that he thinks has a live shot. Last year, he completed the Superfecta when he sent 4 over, but the big favorite he had that was 4-5, I think, was White Beam, and that horse finished 4th in that race.
Right.
So I think when he sends a lot all the way out here, it's kind of a sign that he doesn't really believe Gino Romantica necessarily has to win this race. So,
but he wants to win this race, so he sends 3 others who can also.
Yeah, of course. And I'm not trying to be Chad. I'm going with another Chad. Child of the Moon. This is a horse I've been following since she ran at Saratoga. I actually bet against her in her first start at Saratoga, and it was a different Chad horse. My Chad horse got the easiest lead of all time, like 49 and 4.5, was cruising. I'm like, this race is over. And all of a sudden, this horse comes out of absolutely nowhere from the back of the pack, flying into this crawling pace, nearly gets there. My horse won, but I remember saying to myself, this is the one. That horse I got second is the one I need moving forward.
Okay.
And sure enough, she came back to win again, beat an allowance field from way out of it, has a huge kick. And then last time she came back to Aqueduct, and again, it was not a very fast pace. She was chasing home a good horse, and Prerequisite was also entered in here. And Prerequisite got the jump behind a slow pace, and this horse still ran her down. I mean, she has a devastating turn of foot that we see win so many races on the Del Mar turf course, where just that explosion in the final quarter of a mile just gets the job done. She's improving. She's still just 4 years old. She keeps getting better and better. I'm a little concerned about the pace. The scratch of Kehoe Beach does complicate things a little bit, but I'm hoping there's enough in here that it's not going to matter, because I do think there's some horses that are going to go forward. I mean, AG Bullet is quick. The Thomas horse from Post 2 is pretty fast, as is the 5, who is Aussie Girl for William Walden. I think all 3 of those are going to be forward.
Someone will have to keep AG Bullet honest, because you can't let a good horse, classy horse like that be 3 lengths clear in a race like this. So I think someone has to be a little aggressive early. Hope that you get that fast pace, because AG Bullet is a fast horse around 2 turns for sure. So setting it up for someone to come from off the pace. What about the other Chad Browns? I mean, do you give any of them a shot, or you like this is the one?
I think this is the one. I mean, Tax Implications is fine. She's 2 for 11. She's never really done anything crazy. Yeah, she doesn't win. And then Prerequisite, I don't really know what to do with her, because I could see her getting the best trip out of all of them, because she is going to be the one that's going to be forward. And I mentioned I'm not quite sure how this pace is going to shake out. I think if I was going to play another horse, it would be her, because I would have the horse Child of the Moon from way out of it. If it heats up or is average pace, and if they happen to crawl, then I think Prerequisite can be right there.
Right.
I'd be a little against. Yeah, she'll get the jump, and I'm honestly against AG Bullet too, because they were supposed to sell her for Breeders' Cup, and she was supposed to go to Keeneland and retire, and then like 2 weeks ago, you know what? Actually, we'll just stay and run one more race in a grade 1. usually prefer these horses to have a target and they stick with it, and that's kind of what they're gearing up for. So this kind of just feels like we'll just toss her in and see what happens.
Absolutely. Like to your point, I mean, the good trainers circle a date on their calendar. Say this is the race that we're going to win. Like yesterday, heard an interview with Michael McCarthy after Formidable Man won. Was the Hollywood Derby, was the last race of the day, and he said, you know what, this was the target. You know, we could have gone here, we could have gone there. We didn't. We wanted to win this race, and that's what we trained up for, and the horse delivered. So I'm with you. Like anytime it's kind of like an afterthought, like, oh, this horse ran well, you know what? Let's try the horse here. It usually does not work out that well. I mean, sometimes it does because the horse is just so good, but you want a trainer who has a plan.
Right.
And sticks to that plan and gets the horse there to run a peak effort that day. So, yeah, that race was a little tricky for me. I wanted to really like for Requisite. I was thinking that this was the race for him. This was the target for her. This was the target. But I mean, why hasn't she run a mile, you know, since her debut? She's been running much longer distances.
Right.
You know, there's a big difference between, you know, a true miler and a mile and an eighth horse or a horse who runs, and the race dynamics are completely different. Right. You're going a much faster pace going a flat mile than you are going a mile and an eighth, especially coming out of New York races where they run 51 and change. You're not gonna get 51 and change out here in California. So,
no. Yeah, I don't. And with AG Bullet in the race, I mean, she has to she's one of those horses we just talked about. She's going to open up, right? I mean,
she's got to rip it open. I mean, that's how she's going to win.
That's how she runs. She did it at Keeneland, and it almost worked against Gino Ranchka. She just got a little tired late, but I feel like they have to go pretty quick in here.
Absolutely, and I like. I mean, 10-1 on a Chad Brown horse who, you know, visually you pick up that this horse is legit. You know, the closing, even on paper, the closing times are wicked fast.
Right.
This horse will come home strong. All right, so a win bet there. That's going to be some really, really good value. Do you think they'll get 10-1?
I think so. I mean, I think Gino Ranchka has to get crushed, and so will AG Bullet. I mean, those two are. Everyone's going to gravitate towards those two. So
yeah,
I think one's probably
this is going to be probably the forgotten Chad Brown horse, because even though Tax Implications, you know, doesn't like to win, she has really good. You know, she's got graded stakes form against some really good horses. You know, second and third, that kind of thing. You know, this is kind of a class test for this horse, but based on the come home times and based on your visual impressions, you think this horse can step up and win a grade 1. So great value on that horse. Let's move on to the last race. It's the nightcap. It is the payout leg in all of the multi-race wagers. It's a very important race.
Yeah.
Maiden special weight for 2-year-olds going 1 mile on the lawn. Morning line favorite is number 3, Baiza at 3-1. This son of McKinsey cost $1.2 million, and likely for good reason. Stam produced the Kentucky Derby winner Mage, as well as the Belmont Stakes winner Dornoch. So there is some really quality breeding here. Owner CRK Stables, they do a really good job. They have a specific type. They like big, long striding horses who excel going 2 turns. But to me, that means they're not necessarily precocious. And typically, they are buying horses for the dirt. You know, really buying horses for the turf. It's a little confusing to me why the horse is the favorite. That must be working out really well. And of course, like I said, the pedigree is really good, but you know, Sheriff's is patient. You know, it doesn't often win first time out. So I thought this was a race that you absolutely have to take on the chalk. If that horse is even going to be the chalk, I mean, we'll see. It'll be very interesting to see how the board shakes out. You obviously have an opinion here on an 8-1 shot. Tell us how we're getting paid, Jackson.
Yeah, that Beza horse I know is supposed to be really good. A very top prospect for Sheriffs. I remember there was a quote way back in July saying, yeah, he's really good.
Okay.
And he finally gets the starting gate today. But, you know, Sheriffs just he does not win first time out. It's very rare for him to do it. And if he's going to be the favorite, I'll take him on all day. I don't care.
And you have to think this might just be a conditioning race on the turf and then run the horse on dirt. I mean, from the pedigree, you know, the half brothers, I mean, it's dirt.
Yeah, I would agree totally. I'd be against him. Can he win? Of course. But if he's going to be the favorite, I don't have any problem trying to take him on in here.
Sure.
This was a really good betting race. I thought you could make cases for a lot of these in here. I settled on Tap It Dynasty for Timyak Teen. I just really liked his first 2 starts. He ran on dirt against a pretty quality field over the summer at Del Mar. looked like a prep. I mean, he wasn't really asked for speed out of the gate. On the turn, he started making a run. I really liked that he was in between horses and he split the rivals like super willingly. And that's what I want to see out of a turf horse. And he did it on the dirt. I mean, he had no problem going through traffic.
Okay.
And just kind of ran through the wire, but had a pretty solid gallop out. Good first run. I mean, he should move forward off of that. And then last time I thought he ran pretty well again. He was mid-pack behind the pace, kind of had trouble in the turn behind a tiring rival, went around that one. And then he looked like he had a lot of run, and there was a line of 4 in front of him, and he looked really green. He just refused to go around, and he wouldn't go around. He wanted to go the inside, but the path was the outside. And Diego finally gets to the outside after like an eighth of a mile, came running late, and it was just too late. He got out too late, looked super green, but galloped out really well. I thought those were 2 good efforts that you could build off of. This is an angle I really like, the 2 sprints to a route. I don't think a lot of trainers use it anymore because they'll go one and straight to the route, but I feel like
or they'll have the horse fully cranked from the bell. I mean, this is a good old school patient move by Tim Yakteen, who I think is a very, very terrific trainer. Yeah. He wins on dirt and turf. I mean, I think he's an excellent turf trainer. I mean, what he did with Johannes, the campaign that he mapped out for that horse, and the job that he did with that horse is just, I love that horse. One of my favorite horses out here in California. So yeah, he's a smart guy, and he knows how to get a horse to a race. And yeah, I mean, this horse is bred to go 2 turns, on the turf. So
yeah, this is what he wants to do. He's got that foundation. I saw enough in those 2 videos. Right? I think there's more in the tank. It should be all systems go. I mean, his buyers are actually, if you look at his figures, they're really competitive with everyone else in this race that is random for, and he's double the price of a lot of those horses. So I got no problem making a solid win bet on him. He seems like a horse that is going to improve around 2 turns, like you said.
I love it. This is such great analysis. Thank you so much, Jackson. That wraps up today's best bet, the final best bet of the year. God willing, we'll be back next summer. I know that sounds so far away. Again, thank you, Jackson. Keep doing what you're doing, man. It's so cool to see young guys like you coming out, and you love the game. Absolutely love the game. You're the future of the sport. Not only from just the handicapping and the gambling, but you're marketing the sport. You're doing doing stuff for yourself because you love it, but you're getting it out there, and you maybe build a little bit of a grassroots audience, and that kind of stuff will pay off a couple of years down the road. So thank you for doing what you do. Everyone out there, support this show every Sunday during Del Mar's Meets. We launched this during the pandemic, and it's still going on. And I can't thank everyone out there enough. I can't thank Del Mar enough for supporting the show. I have so much fun doing it. I get to meet interesting, smart people, and I learn a lot. And I always say, the day I go to the racetrack and think I know it all is the day I should never go. I never come back, because if you think you know everything about horse racing, this game will humble you. The racing gods will laugh in your face and put you in your place. But that's how it goes. 8 months from now, we'll do it again. In the meanwhile, as I always like to say, good luck to us, and let's make some money. Thanks for everyone watching, and thank you, Jackson. See you out there today.
Thanks, Frank.
All right, take care.